Good morning, Jai Bhagwan. Welcome here to Bhakti House. We seem to be experiencing just a few technical issues here this morning, so the video may cut in and out, but hopefully the audio will stick with us this morning. Well, let's chant together, and we'll have a bit of discussion. Oh, before we begin chanting, quick note for everyone, there will be no daytime classes today. We will have Yoga Nidra tonight at 8 o'clock here at Bhakti House. That will not be broadcast live. So again, that's in person only, 8 p.m. tonight, Yoga Nidra. Let's go ahead and chant.
Sa
Inhale the hands up to prayer position. And as you exhale, let the eyes open. Jai Bhagwan. And thank you for joining me this morning. I'd like you to be able to see, just adjust a little bit so you can see both of these gentlemen behind me. Over the next few days, as many of you are aware, my mother will be going through a number of different procedures, and to kind of help keep everybody up to date on that, and so that I don't feel a need to report on that during these satsang times. In the afternoons, I'll make a report on how that day has gone. So we'll tend to that later. That lets that not be a thought rolling around inside of this mind. Tapas. So we're in the second book. We're in the second book of the Yoga Sutras. If I remember correctly, this is the portion on practice, sadhana. And the reason that why I'm struggling a little bit to remember is because Swami V does not label each of these as books, nor does he give the title of the book, but rather he labels them as chapters without any description as to what the chapter is particularly on. Tapas. So he says about tapas, book 2, Sutra 1, the kindling of the inner psychic fire, tapas means fire or heat, that at once burns away all the impurities or coloring and limitations of the mind stuff, the study of both scriptural texts and one's own reaction to situations from moment to moment, and the meaningful, dynamic, and devotional surrender to the indwelling omnipresence. These three simultaneously constitute active yoga, or practice of the indivisible unity. So, kindling this inner fire, study of yourself, and surrender to that self, Ishvara Pranidhana, which often is interpreted as surrender to God. Remember, you are that divinity. You are that divine spark. Surrender to the true self, not to the ego mind. But tapas, there's another translation by Swami Satchidananda. And he said, tapas is accepting pain as an aid for purification. And here he says, kindle this inner psychic fire that burns away all the impurities. It's an aid for purification. And it's accepting pain, this inner fire. Ever felt like you're just on fire? And not necessarily in a nice toasty way? What does that mean, purification? Well, he kind of gives us a hint here. He says it burns away all the impurities and limitations of the mind stuff. Where do those impurities come from? What are those impurities? What are the limitations? If you just close the eyes and let the mind be still, there's no fear. There's also no hope. It's not that you're hopeless, but hope is very often a wish for things to be different than they are right now. There's no need for this moment to be any different than it is right now, because the past is not affecting the present. And the only reason why we have imagination, hope over here in the future, is because some reason we believe that right now is not good enough the way it is. hope. We think of hope as being positive, but it's also a subtle negative that right now is not good enough. Now, I'm not going to try to take your hope away from you today. Hope can be helpful, and let's let it be helpful for as long as it's helpful for you. But let's let go of those fears, those things from the past, those limitations from the past that tend to cloud the way we see right now. Tapas is burning those past limitations away so that we're free to be fully present and fully expressed right here, right now. He goes on to say in Sutra 2, when it is clearly understood that the instant realization of cosmic oneness, which is yoga, is not the product of any effort, how can one practice such unity? You can't huff and puff your way into heaven, as one of my friends says. You can't force yourself to relax. You can't force yourself to be at ease. As I taught last night at the Krishna temple, there was 13 or 14 of us there last night. And I asked at the end, so how hard was it? How much effort did you have to put into relaxing and to being at peace? And everyone said none, zero. And then one woman at the end, she shot her hand up in the air and she said, I really had to struggle. And at first my mind was like, okay, I get that. Sometimes relaxing can be a struggle when we're dealing with a lot of anxiety. And how does he say it? When it is clearly understood that the instant realization of cosmic oneness, and there was an instant realization for me, that she had not struggled to relax at any point in time. So I asked her one question, and I would ask you yourself to consider this question. When you think about how much you have struggled at times to relax, was the struggle to create relaxation, or was the struggle to stop the mind from going out and being crazy and chasing these ideas and these thoughts over here? And as you look closely, the struggle is to stop the mind, stop the activity of the mind, because it's like a wild horse that's just running crazy. But as soon as you can get the activity of the mind to stop, the relaxation appears effortlessly. As soon as we can get the activity of the mind to stop, without any effort, the seer is revealed. Because there's emptiness of mind and there's something, consciousness, awareness, observing emptiness of mind. So he asks the question, when we realize that we can't use effort to practice this unity, then how do we do it? He says, surely active yoga is taught not because such practice results in the realization of oneness. However, it can aid in the direction of one's attention toward enlightenment and away from the elements that cause mental turmoil, which as a result of such turning away are weakened. So the mind wants to go after this thing, after this thing, after this thing, after this thing. I've got this story about when I was 10 and I almost got ran over by that car, and I can't even cross the street. That didn't actually happen to me. But I'm just terrified of traffic. It's been 40 years since that happened. And all I can do is think about that, think about that, think about that. Or that thing that happened 5 minutes ago. Or in my mother's case, the surgery that's coming up. And all of the complications and everything that are coming with it. The mind wants to latch onto these things and go towards them and go towards them and go towards them and go towards them. And the effort is getting the mind to stop going for the things. So this active yoga is taught not because it creates the realization, but because it's an aid in directing one's attention toward enlightenment and away from the things that cause mental turmoil. And by directing towards enlightenment rather than the activity and the mental turmoil, reaching out, this grasping becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. It's not that we shouldn't remember the difficult things in life and learn from them. It's not that I should be a good yogi and not care whether my mother is going through turmoil or not. That's not the point. A good yogi feels and experiences everything that comes up, but doesn't hold on. Because notice what happens when we hold on? We approach the world and we approach life like this. No one wants that. Approach life like this. And let whatever lands on the hand be there. And when it leaves, let it leave. So that it leaves no strong impression. Number 3, the mind is restless because of the many unresolved problems. And we think those are the things that happened when we were 10, that happened when we were 20, that happened 5 minutes ago. That's not what he's talking about. He says the elements that disturb mental equilibrium and thus generate psychic distress, these problems, are, number 1, ignorance of the truth concerning, number 2, one's self or egotism, which seems to be the obvious truth in ignorance, and the belief in the separative individuality. I am a separate self. That's egoism. That's the ignorance. 3 and 4, psychological and unnatural extension of attraction and repulsion, which as neurological phenomena are natural. We all have them. And finally, 5, blind clinging to the present physical life, born of the ignorant division of timeless eternity into life and death. Well, Ramdas, if you were a really good yogi, you wouldn't be worried about, this clinging to bodily life thing. We'll find out later. Well, actually, we'll find out in just a moment, so I won't bring it up. Yes. We'll come back to that. So those are the 5 things. These are the kleshas. The 5, as Swami V calls them, problems. Unresolved problems. Ignorance, egoism, likes, dislikes, clinging to bodily life. These are the 5. Then Patanjali tells us something very interesting. He says, obviously, ignorance of the truth of oneness, or as Babaji says, not being able to answer the question, who am I? Which we looked at on Monday, this thing of enlightenment. Who am I? Enlightenment is being able to answer that question. And not just answering the question, but having investigated the answer to the question so thoroughly that we never leave it. One approach to that question is to identify who I am not. I am not this body. I am not these thoughts. I'm obviously not this room. I am not what appears to be you. Not this, not this, not this. That's known as neti. Identifying who I am not. Babaji also gives us a direction on how to identify, or rather, how to recognize who I am. And you can go back and review Monday's video for a glimpse into that. He says, obviously, ignorance of the truth of oneness, or the indivisibility of cosmic intelligence, is the cause of all other sources of psychic distress. Ignorance, as it's said elsewhere, is the field in which the other four problems, likes, dislikes, egoism, that's the one I'm missing. Egoism, this belief in a separate self, likes, dislike, and clinging to bodily life. Ignorance is the field where these four weeds grow. Whether these latter seem to be completely hidden or dormant, veiled or weak, or actively spread out, creating the notion that they are not related to spiritual ignorance, that they are independent of ignorance and can therefore be dealt with by means other than self-knowledge. So sometimes we try to focus on these four things: egoism, likes, dislikes, clinging to bodily life. When if we'll just focus on this one, if we'll just take care of the field, the weeds in the field, they die away. Ignorance, number 5, gives rise to a knowledge of ego sense, an assumed fact of the non-existent ego sense. It is only in a state of spiritual ignorance that one identifies or confuses that which is impermanent with that which is eternal. I can't change. This is just the way I am. That which is impure or colored with that which is pure and unconditioned. Have you looked at my past? I'm a product of my past. What else can I do? Pain with joy. We know plenty of situations where people think that something that's painful is actually bringing them joy. We do it ourselves. And the unmodified consciousness, self, with thoughts and modifications which are not self. Realization of the spiritual truth, or enlightenment, Monday's video, on the other hand, enables the impermanent, etc., to be seen as such, and the permanent, etc., to be seen as such. We know who we really are if we can just clean up the field of ignorance. We remove the ignorance, egoism, likes, dislikes, and clinging to bodily life stop being problems. It's not that the ego disappears, but we stop identifying ourselves as this ego self. We become free of the past. It's not that we stop liking things and disliking things. I still really, really enjoy the taste of mangoes, and I still really, really, really cringe at the taste of artificial strawberry. But I'm not attached to either one. They can come and go, it doesn't matter. And this bodily life thing, well, that's a discussion, if you'd like to talk about that you and I should have in person or one-on-one, even if it's across the internet. Suicide sometimes looks like a desire to stop clinging to bodily life. It's not, it's just an escape. But there is this ability to no longer be trapped by this bodily life, to where it's not such a limiting thing. Number 6, in cosmic consciousness, all activities happen. From the Atma Gita, there is only one conscious self which creates the whole universe. In cosmic consciousness, all activities happen. Thus, for instance, seeing happens. The power of sight sees. However, when the consciousness, fragmented by the shadow of ignorance, identifies itself as the seer, there is the ego sense. Now, this can become a little confusing because some translations, yoga is the stilling of the modifications of the mind, then the seer appears in its own true nature. So what is it that Swami V is trying to point out to us? Well, here's all these objects. Here's all these objects behind me. And the eyes take in those images or receive those images, and the mind sees them. What he's saying here is this would be like the mind believing it was the eyes. The mind is not the eyes. The mind is the thing recognizing objects. The eyes are simply the things taking in the view. But he takes us one step back. He's talking about consciousness. One step back, identifying itself as the seer, the mind. Then there is ego sense. So, eyes in relation to the mind has the same relationship as mind in relation to the seer or the witness, or as he puts it here, consciousness. Consciousness, when we recognize we're this step back that can view the mind, consciousness is not the mind. But we often get wrapped up and believe we are the thoughts and the mind and all of these likes, dislikes, and so forth. Number 7, attraction or mental conditioning or coloring follows. It rests in and is just another term for the erroneous evaluation of an object or experience as pleasure. I like it, I like it, I like it, I like it. Because of the mental coloring, something looks attractive. Lots of people like Neapolitan ice cream, and I'm not one of them. Why? Because the experiences of life are not universally attractive. They're also not universally repulsive. As we just begin to see them all as an experience, as neutral, then we can enjoy them or not enjoy them and not get caught up in them. Similarly, repulsion, which is another phase of attraction, two sides of the same coin, follows, abides in, and is just another term for the erroneous classification as an object or experience as pain-giving. On the other hand, what the human mind in ignorance regards as attraction and repulsion exist in nature and are inherent and variable and constant in the manifestation of cosmic intelligence. For example, magnetic polarity. Do you really have a preference for the positive or the negative side of a magnet? Of course not. But we have a attachment to what we see as positive or negative in the rest of our lives. And really, it's just the way life is showing up. In nature, however, there is neither the cloud of ignorance nor its consequent ego sense, and hence the attraction and repulsion in nature are of an entirely different quality to that found in the human psyche. When we see attraction and repulsion in nature, it's just about surviving. It's about navigating nature. You know, the tiger doesn't go, well, you know, I'm really tired of the stripes. I think I'll go change. Or, I shouldn't be a meat eater. I understand it's wrong for me to kill, so I'll become vegetarian now. No tiger has ever said that, and no tiger ever will say that. Likes and dislikes are instinctual survival level responses rather than a subjective mental level decision. Number 9, blind clinging to life. It's not that we shouldn't try to preserve our lives, but it's this blind clinging to life that causes a fear of death. is an inexplicable yet undeniable fact of life which is self-sustaining, since it is just another phase or face of ignorance, and is therefore found to be dominant even in the wise. We all get a pass on this one. Everyone has an aspect of that clinging to life. Part of it comes from survival. And part of it is, am I looking for the fountain of youth? Dominant factor even in wise beings, as long as the physical body, which is the operative seat of ignorance, exists. So as long as we're actually in this physical body, we're going to have some clinging to bodily life. It's by design. Survival of this body is not a bad thing. It is the operation of the power that preserves the physical sheath for the unfoldment of self-knowledge. That's why it's a beneficial thing. You can't have enlightenment, you can't experience moksha, liberation, freedom, without this physical thing. If you can't experience it without this physical thing, you kind of need the physical thing. Combined with the habit of dependence on objective sources for enjoyment and sustenance and fear of losing them, and the inability to see other states of existence. We see this physical realm, and that's basically where our awareness exists. All right, we're just about finished here with today's little discussion. These sources of psychic distress are subtle. Sometimes they're really big. Most of the time they're subtle. And not to be confused with their gross expansion as likes and dislikes, habits, good and bad, vanity, and such personality traits. Those are much bigger. Those are symptoms of these subtle things. However, these subtle sources of psychic distress can be dispelled by resolving each in its own cause, or by confronting each of them with its own true opposite. So we can go after these things one at a time. And we can begin to resolve them by bringing the opposite side of that coin into play. Both when these elements of psychic distress are mere ripples on the surface of the mind stuff, and when they become gross and operative, these big things, they can be dispelled by contemplation. What does he mean? They can be dispelled by contemplation. Contemplation is the understanding, is the knowledge of a thing, and beginning to reason about the thing, and beginning to place that knowledge into action. Monday, you got some knowledge. I am not this personality, I am not this body, I am not these thoughts. Begin to place that into some practical action. How? How do you put that into practical action? As you go throughout your day, simply remind yourself, oh, I am aware of this happening. Oh, I am aware of this happening. Oh, I am aware of this happening. Oh, I am aware. Oh, I am aware. Oh, the thing that's constant, I am aware. Oh, I am awareness. Oh, I am. So how does touching your toes and all of those things we do in a yoga class have anything to do with any of this? Well, again, it's another place to become aware of, or to recognize rather. I'm aware of touching the toes. I'm aware of the breath. I'm aware of the sensation in my left shoulder. I'm aware of the foot that has fallen asleep. I'm aware of the thing I should not have eaten at breakfast right before doing yoga because now my stomach is bothering me. I am aware, I am aware, I am aware, I am aware, I am aware. Oh, I am. It's just a place to intentionally practice this I am awareness. Now, let's go ahead and let the eyes close. And notice you are now aware of eyes being closed. Did you stop existing? If you believe you are the if you believe you are the eyes that are looking at things, and the eyes are no longer looking at things, they are experiencing the absence of things to look at. Did you cease to exist? No, of course not. Because you are now aware of darkness, aware of an absence of objects. You may be aware of subtle patterns of light and color behind the eyelids. You are still aware. Now shift awareness to the breath. Focus on breath. And now repeat to yourself, I am aware of breath. Can you go even subtler? Feel the heartbeat. Can you go even subtler, becoming aware, or rather, bring attention to the pause between heartbeats? Now let's chant one sound of Om and allow yourself to recognize I am aware of chanting Om. Take a breath in. Om. And now you are aware that chanting has stopped. I am aware. How do you dispel ignorance? By practicing, I am aware, I am aware, I am aware, I am aware, I am, I am, I am, I am. Inhale, bring the hands to prayer position. As you exhale, let the eyes open and repeat after me. Jai Bhagwan. You are that awareness, that Bhagwan, that divine spark. So as I said, there will be no classes today through the day. Later this evening, I'll make a report on how things are going with my mother and what we're looking for, or how things will look over the next few days. And if you're here local, please come join us tonight at 8 p.m. for Yoga Nidra. I could use the company. I would enjoy having your company here for Yoga Nidra. So hopefully I will see you tonight. And if you're not able to, don't stress about it. Don't feel badly if your schedule does not allow you to be here. Just know I would enjoy seeing you here, regardless of the circumstance. And until then, Jai Bhagwan.